If today wasn't Sunday, we'd be observing it as the feast of St. Francis de Sales. Francis de Sales lived in France. He was born in 1567 and died in 1622. He's a doctor of the church, he's a bishop, and he lived at the time of the Counter-Reformation when there was a great surge in Catholicism to correct the errors of the age and to win people who had drifted into Protestantism back to the faith. But it was a great movement of reform and renewal within the Catholic Church itself, and certainly knew that the King and Queen of France on an intimate basis. He was born into nobility. His family wanted him to become a lawyer, and Francis de Sales had a great crisis when he announced that he wanted to be a priest, and his father was violently opposed to the vocation. Francis had grown up learning to fence, court etiquette. He was presented at court, all the privileges and responsibilities of being a noble. He turned his back on all that to become a priest, and what an effective priest he was. He famously debated prominent Protestants and was always known both for his erudition, his intelligence, but also his gentleness and compassion. And oftentimes at the end of a debate, the Protestant debater would come over to Francis and convert to Catholicism because of the gentle persuasiveness of St. Francis de Sales. He was named Bishop of Geneva, Switzerland, which was the capital of Calvinism, which was very anti-Catholic. Francis could not even enter into his own see for fear of being killed. And so often he would sneak in at night. He slept in trees. He wrote out pastoral letters that were copied and handed secretly to Catholics in the city. He heroically evangelized his people by any method that he could because of the abnormalcy of the situation. With St. Jane Frances de Chantal, he co-founded the Order of Visitation Nuns, which still flourishes throughout the world today. He's a patron of journalists. Probably his greatest literary triumph was Introduction to the Devout Life. And in so many ways, Francis de Sales was ahead of his time because he was convicted that holiness, sainthood, was not simply for priests and nuns and those in monasteries and convents, but holiness was for the ordinary person living in the world. And that was certainly affirmed at the Second Vatican Council. So he would say it would be foolishness for a businessman and father of six to have the same spirituality as a Trappist monk, or for a busy mother to think that she's going to have the prayer life of a cloistered nun. So that we adapt our spirituality to our way of life, and God will show us that if we're faithful to him. He even went further, and in this sense he was psychologically ahead of his time because he realized that we all had different temperaments, different psychological makeups, different emotional points of view, and in all of that God was working so that each one of us may experience or understand God in a different way. But there's a beauty in that variety because we come to know God in the particularity of our own individuation as one human being. So there's only one of you, there's only one of me in the entire history of the world. And when we live our faith and come to know God, we add something to that beautiful mosaic that we call the communion of saints. St. Francis de Sales, patron of journalists, heroic saint of the Counter-Reformation, and a great example of evangelization. Pray for us.